Welcome back for another episode of Branching Out with Sierra. Today we're diving into a topic that's been showing up in a lot of conversations lately, especially in my work with teams, and it's the difference between communicating and truly connecting. As you know, we live in a world full of messages, emails, conversations in all different forms. But how often do you walk away from those moments feeling like you've really been seen or heard or understood by those that were listening to you? So today's episode is inspired by some recent conversations with some of my clients, as well as John Maxwell's book, Everyone Communicates, Few Connect. And this episode is all about how to move beyond just sharing information and start building real, meaningful connection in our leadership, our teams, and our everyday lives. So this episode is entitled, Why Communication Isn't Enough, Leading Through Connection. So let's jump in and talk a little bit about what brought this to my attention. So I hear all the time that communication is the most important aspect of leadership. Those people who are not feeling great about the leadership within their organizations often immediately cite communication as the top issue. And when they say that, what do they really mean? So sometimes I hear that it's the lack of communication. So they're not really in tune with what's going on behind the scenes. They don't understand the why behind the decisions that are being made. Or sometimes it's a lack of clarity in the communication. So they're receiving information, but it doesn't necessarily make sense, or the information doesn't align with the actions that they're seeing, or they're being told something, they start to do it that way, and then a change has been made, which means that they have to throw away all the work and go in a different direction. So they feel like maybe the communication happened too early before an ultimate decision was made. There are many different reasons that communication breaks down. We know that. So one of the things that I want to talk about today is your mindset when you're communicating with someone else. A lot of times we have a specific message that we want to get across to someone, whether it's a friend, a family member, someone on your team in the workplace, it doesn't matter who. When we want to deliver a message, it's very easy to want to jump right in and just say what we want to say, rather than really pausing to think about the other person's needs in the conversation. Now, I've talked about communication before when focusing on different personality styles through DISC and the assessments that I do, but I'm not going to focus on DISC today. I really want to talk about the connection aspect. And that really happens when you shift your mindset from what do I want to say, right, to what does this person need from me? I can't help but think of in a relationship with a partner, how sometimes you might go to them and you specifically don't want advice. You just want to be able to vent. I also hear it all the time from teams. This past week, I was doing a session with a team that's been working together for so long, and they get along so well. They're an amazing team, a lot of fun to work with. One of the things that they said that they do for stress relief is they go to one another to vent. So when something happens, they're frustrated and they don't want to react in the moment, they go to one of their other teammates and they vent and they get it all off their chest. And then they go back and they handle it after kind of the emotion is taken out of it. But they said the important part of that is that they have to feel like they can go without judgment and share that information, go and not just receive advice immediately, but sometimes it's just to get it off their chest. So they might say, I don't need you to tell me what to do. I don't need this from you right now. I just want to share this. I just need to vent. Well, if you're on the receiving end of that, it's wonderful if someone tells you exactly what they need from you in the moment. I know I've had people say that to me before. Just tell me what it is you need, because they're guessing and it's not working. So it is helpful to consider the other person's need. And if they haven't made it clear what their need is, maybe you need to ask, what is it that you need from me in this moment? Are you just getting it off your chest? Are you looking for advice? But sometimes it doesn't seem quite appropriate to ask. You can tell that they just want to get it off their chest. And so, in some of my client situations, they'll talk about, frustrated, irritated customers or clients coming in, and they're, having to stand there and take it. They might be yelling at them. They might be speaking inappropriately to them. But if they pause and really think about it, they don't know what's happened in that person's life today. They don't know who that person has to really vent to and connect with in their personal life. So they tend to just let them get it all off their chest so that the emotion can be done with, and then they can focus on getting to the root cause and solving whatever it is might be the pain point that brought them in that day. But a strategy to help with this is always being others focused, right? You need to have a mindset where you're considering their needs. And if it's not clear what they need, maybe explicitly asking what someone needs. One of the suggestions that is made in a text that I read is to always ask 2 questions first before you share your viewpoint. Before you really switch over to talking about what you want to talk about, have you asked a couple of questions? Have you really focused on them and shown that you care, that you want to understand them before automatically switching? The other thing is considering their energy that they're bringing to the table. Sometimes just by reading their energy, you know what you need to do. So if someone's coming with a ton of emotion, you're not going to want to elevate that emotion and escalate the situation even further. It's more important that you remain calm and you can balance that out and help them bring them back to, a better temperature so that you can really get to problem solving. So in future conversations, try asking a couple of questions before you give any input, before you try to give any advice. People will really appreciate the fact that you are trying to connect with them first and don't automatically go into advice giving. I know that in the entrepreneurially group that I'm in, it's just a ton of, business owners that get together. We have some coaching. We have some quarterly learning days. One of our rules when we do our team accountability calls is that when we share out a challenge we're having within our business, that we don't provide advice to one another. So, I don't share a challenge and then someone says, oh, well, you should blank, right? Maybe they've experienced that situation before or experienced something similar and they're speaking from a place of experience. However, it's not always received well when someone seems to immediately have a solution and tells you what to do, right? It's much better to truly focus on the experience that you had. So instead of giving advice on our calls, what we are told to do is to only share any experiences we have that are somehow related to what the challenge is that the individual shared. So as we go around the room, each person might say, well, I didn't have an experience just like that, but I did have a similar challenge with an employee, and this is what happened, and this is how I chose to handle it, and this was the result. That is much different than immediately jumping in and giving advice. It's usually well received. However, what we do notice is sometimes when we go around like that, the person that is receiving the input from others might actually say, no, but this time I really do want advice because I don't know what to do. And I know I've said that before. Like, I love that you're sharing your experience and you all just had different experiences and you all tried different things. And I have decision fatigue, so I just need somebody to tell me what to do. And so I am then expressing my needs. Just tell me what you think I should do, but I've asked for it. It's not that they're just volunteering it and I don't feel like it's being forced upon me. So that's just another example of really considering what does the other person need in the moment and how can I better support those needs. The other thing that we want to think about is messaging with clarity. I know that I can be extremely long-winded. I know that I like a lot of details sometimes, and I know that I like things to be short and sweet sometimes, and I think it's totally unpredictable which part of me is going to be functioning in the moment. I'm not sure that there's rhyme or reason. Some situations, I'm like, this person didn't give me enough information. And in other situations, I'm like, goodness gracious, I wish they would have just gotten to the point. Bullets would have been appropriate. So that makes it very hard for someone to communicate with you if they don't know what you need, right? So how can you share information in a way that's more simplistic and provides greater clarity and take something that seems so complicated and make it simple? And I can't help but think that a great tool for this and kind of putting into perspective how much you might go overboard in your communication is to take an email that you're writing to someone and run it through AI and ask it to make it more clear and simplify the language. And if you notice that you go from several paragraphs to a few sentences and you notice that pattern, you start to see, oh my gosh, maybe I am over communicating sometimes. Maybe I'm providing too much and I could just start with something more simple and provide greater clarity. And if someone needs more information, they can then ask me for that and I can provide what they need rather than making it so complex the first time around. So a strategy that I've come across that is suggested is a one-sentence clarity test. So how can you simplify your main point that you are trying to get across to someone in one sentence? Sometimes that's really hard to do. You might want to put a lot of commas in it, and you might end up with a run-on sentence, but it really does help you to get down to the crux of the situation and really what am I trying to get across here. The other thing is that in order to build connection with someone, not just communicate information, but to connect with them, sometimes stories really help with connecting. If you are just always focused on data and facts and statistics, kind of like those high C's, like myself sometimes, if you can stop and you can communicate through a story, just like I shared a few minutes ago with Entrepreneurially and the experiences that we shared, sometimes that's more powerful to really connect with another human being. Maybe it's a shared experience. It's something that's happened to them before or something similar has happened. So then you're tapping into a shared emotion. You're speaking to something that is a feeling that other people can relate to as well. Of course, that's going to help build connection. So both of those, you can simplify the communication, be clear in exactly what you're trying to get across, but how might you use story in a conversation to truly connect with another individual? That is different, again, different than just communicating. This is connecting. You can communicate all day. You can text someone, you can send a Slack message, you can email, you can FaceTime. There are so many forms of communication, but you can communicate a ton, but you've never really connected with the other individual. So think about how you can simplify that next important message to a sentence before sharing it, or consider in this situation, is there a way that I should try to more emotionally connect with this individual rather than just at the surface level? Sometimes helping to find that common ground, especially if there's conflict or tension. It can be helpful reaching that connection from maybe that shared experience that I was just talking about. Is there a moment that a person might be able to say, me too? I've experienced that similarly. You can also look at the form of communication that someone's using and note the pace that they're sharing, the style that they're sharing, the amount of details, and mirror that. Mirror appropriately what you're seeing in them. So I always talk about that when I'm doing DISC training and I'm trying to say, okay, I want you to consider how you might adapt your communication to the blank style. Maybe it's, I want to adapt my communication to a high I, a high influencer. Well, I always share with my clients, no matter which style we're talking about, the best way to adapt is to mirror their behavior, except when something's escalated and there's a ton of anger or really strong negative emotion in there. Obviously, you don't want to mirror that emotion. That's going to escalate, not de-escalate. But I'm talking about in general communication, it is important to mirror their pace, mirror their style. So if I see that someone's really trying to connect with me and it seems that they want to build more of a relationship and get to know me, I'm not just going to respond with facts and statistics, because obviously that's not the way that person communicates. That's not how they connect with another person. They need to have an authentic conversation. They need to see that I truly care and I want to hear about them and that I'm taking the time to answer their questions about me because they're trying to get to know me. So I always try to say, like, if someone is asking me questions to get to know me, how many questions can I come up with to get to know them, right? I don't automatically go into digging deep to know the person. That's not my first reaction. I have shared before I'm actually introverted, and so I tend to automatically go into how can we make this a shorter conversation because it gets uncomfortable for me sometimes. And kind of exhausting to try to figure out the next thing to talk about to continue the connection. That's because I'm really driven to get to the outcome. What is it we're trying to achieve? Are we here to build a relationship today? Are we here to talk business? What is the actual purpose? That's what I want to get to. So with that being said, you can quickly figure out how you want to connect with the individual based on what appears to be their purpose. Are they here to connect with me, or did they go straight to business? Which direction do I need to go in order to make this effective? So that connection is going to benefit both sides. You're going to better get to know them and their needs, as well as the reverse. So maybe before you go into a situation, considering the person that you're about to communicate with, if it's a team member that you are used to working with, what is that shared common ground? What is the typical pace and style of communication with that individual? Is that a way that you could better connect with them? A few minutes ago, I used the word authentic, and it is really important to be authentic in your communication. People can very quickly spot when you're not being authentic. And you might think you're faking it really well, but it's usually pretty obvious. So we want to make sure that you're building a true connection, and it's not one of those fake it till you make it kind of things. I don't think that applies. That means you have to be fully present and in the moment and giving your attention. Sometimes I think about the people that are working on their computers. Someone walks into the office and tries to have a conversation with them, and they continue typing on their computers, and maybe they're saying one word here or there or something, but it's more of I'm just appeasing the person to get them out of my hair, not that I truly want to hear what they have to say because I'm in the middle of something. So what could you do to avoid those situations? Have you made it clear when it's an open door policy and people can just walk right in and start talking to you? Or Do you need to have a system where if you're working and it's a time you can't be interrupted, that you have some way to identify that? Maybe I've seen some of the sliders on the doors that say, busy, not right now, or open for conversation. There are tons of ways out there that you can communicate if you're ready for that or not. But if someone's walking in and trying to have a conversation, obviously what they have to say they thought was important enough to interrupt you. So it would be appropriate to pause long enough to make eye contact, give them your full attention, be present and in the moment, and authentically figure out what they need from you, rather than the nodding and smiling and continuing to work on what you're doing. Another way to connect with authenticity is to be a little vulnerable and be transparent about things. I know I've said before that it really is helpful to be able to share some of the challenges that you are facing, or if someone's coming to you with a problem, to be able to share, I've experienced that problem in the past. You're going to come across as authentically caring about the person and being willing to share your own mistakes in the past or faults you may have had, in order to better connect and help them to feel like they're not in it alone, they're not isolated. So we're both putting away distractions so we can fully engage. We're also willing to be a little vulnerable and share about ourselves sometimes, if you feel it's appropriate and in the moment. You never want to do it in a way where it's the one-upper, where they're sharing something with you and it's a really big deal to them. And rather than acknowledging how much of a big deal it is and figuring out what they need in the moment, instead you respond with, well, blah, blah, blah happened to me, right? There's a difference between connecting and having a shared experience and truly trying to downplay what they're sharing with you by showing that you've experienced something more difficult. So it doesn't make what they're going through as terrible. So we know that sometimes people fall into that trap, and you can quickly do that without thinking about it. If you catch yourself, then bring attention to it and share your intention was not to do so. But we really want to be able to show that empathy. That's what we're talking about here. It's the emotional intelligence piece, being able to read the moment and know that that's not going to be helpful to the individual. So we're going to stay fully present. We're going to be authentic. We're going to be mindful of their needs. And finally, I want to make sure that I'm adding value. This makes me think of in BNI, we talk about giver's gain, and really focusing on what value you can bring to the other person instead of going into a relationship always looking to get something out of it. So let's just say someone new comes into our networking group. We've never met them before. When I go to set up a one-to-one with them, my intention is never to share about myself. My intention is just to get to know the other person. If we don't say a thing about who I am, my background, or my business, it doesn't bother me, because I feel like it's really important for me to really take the time to listen and hear what they're looking for and see if I can add value to them. Oh, you're looking for a connection for blank? I know someone who does that. That might be a perfect fit. Or building a relationship through shared experiences, like I was just talking about. Oh, they experienced this. I can relate to that and really find that common ground early on based on interests or experiences. But again, you're adding value. So connection is built by serving others before you promote yourself. So asking yourself, what can I give? Can I give encouragement? Can I give insight into, how to problem solve? Can I provide resources? What if I'm giving encouragement? What does that need to look like for this person? So consider exactly what value you are adding. I know at the end of these episodes, I always say that I know that I say this, that I hope you found value in today's episode, because that's why I'm doing this. I'm not doing the podcast for myself. I'm not getting paid to do the podcast. I come on here in the hopes that I am able to share something that it helps one person. That would make me happy to hear that it impacted one person. And that's why I need to hear from you, by the way, because I need to know whether or not you have received it in a way in which you're continuing to reflect or apply something to your life. So before your next outreach to someone, ask yourself, how can I add value first? How can I not immediately go into what's in it for me? What can this person do to serve me and serve my needs so I can get what I want, but instead focus on them first? Okay, so I've covered a lot of different strategies together to focus on connection over just communication today, whether it's the 2-question rule and trying to ask 2 genuine questions to really get clarity around what a person needs before jumping into giving advice, whether it's that 1-sentence message check and seeing if you can simplify your messaging to really clarify and get right to the point so someone knows what you're trying to get across, whether it's auditing your own presence and figuring out if you're giving people your full attention throughout the day. I know I'm not always good at that. I know I can improve, and it's something that's in the back of my mind. It's very easy for me to be working on something. Maybe I'm on my phone running through emails or something, someone comes to me and I'm in the middle of that. It's hard to break my attention and focus on what they have to say, but I'm trying really hard to be mindful and in the moment. And finally, maybe it is just being authentic and sharing experiences and vulnerability and challenges that you've faced in the past, mistakes you've made, and really connecting over that. There's so many different ways to connect with people, but what I hope you take away from today is that we always say communication is crucial. In leadership, in any relationship, communication is crucial, but it's not just getting the message across, but it's also the connection that has to occur that continues to deepen the relationship and make sure that both individuals are getting what they need out of that communication. So Everyone Communicates, Few Connect was that book from John Maxwell that really stood out to me when I first started getting into leadership development as a whole. I looked at that text and it really did bring my awareness and attention to the lack of connection between people sometimes. So this week, I challenge you to focus less on just saying the right thing and more on building the right connection. So I hope you found value in today's episode. If you did, share it with somebody else that you think would enjoy it as well. As you know, if you subscribed, you will get notifications when new episodes come out every Friday at noon Eastern Standard Time. So be sure to subscribe, especially as we're approaching this season 2 kickoff in our second year of the podcast with a lot of exciting changes happening. I'm really excited to share those with you, but I also want some of it to be a surprise, so I'm resisting the urge to just spill all the beans all at once. But there are exciting things coming, so if you're thinking someone might like this podcast, share it now so that they'll be with us when we transition into the new season. All right, until next time, keep branching out and keep connecting. Take care.